Hello, young learners. Today, we're going to learn about a very important event in India's history called the Rowlatt Act and the tragic incident of Jallianwala Bagh. This story will show us how people fought against unfair laws and how these events shaped the future of India's freedom movement. Let's dive right into it. After the success of his earlier movements, in 1919, Mahatma Gandhi decided to start a new protest, this time against a law called the Rowlatt Act. This law was passed by the British government, even though many Indian leaders opposed it. The Rowlatt Act was very unfair. It gave the government the power to arrest people and keep them in jail without a trial. Gandhi knew this was wrong, so he called for a peaceful protest, which he called a satyagraha, to show that people didn't support such an unjust law. On April 6, 1919, people all over India took part in a harle, a day of protest. Shops were closed, workers went on strike, and people came together in rallies to peacefully show their disagreement with the Rowlatt Act. But the British government was afraid that this movement would disrupt important services like the railways and communication, so they started arresting leaders, hoping to stop the protests. Unfortunately, things took a terrible turn in Amritsar. On April 10th, the British police fired on a group of peaceful protesters, which made the situation much worse. People became very angry. On April 13th, a large group of people gathered in a place called Wallabag. They were there to protest and also to celebrate the festival of Baisakhi. But something horrible happened that day. General Dyer, a British officer, came to the gathering with his troops. Without any warning, he blocked the exits of the garden and ordered his soldiers to open fire on the crowd. Hundreds of innocent people were killed. This terrible event became known as the Jallianwala Bagh massacre. General Dyer said he wanted to create fear in the hearts of the people who were protesting, but instead of scaring them, it made them even more determined to fight against British rule. News of the massacre spread quickly, and people all over northern India were outraged. There were more strikes, protests, and clashes with the British government. After the Jallianwala Bagh massacre, the British government responded with even more violence. They humiliated the protesters by making them crawl on the ground and salute the British officers. People were whipped and some villages were even bombed. Seeing all this violence, Mahatma Gandhi decided to stop the Rowlatt Satyagraha. He believed in non-violence, and he didn't want the protests to turn into violent clashes. However, this event made Gandhi realize that a bigger movement was needed to bring all Indians together. Soon after, Gandhi started working on a new plan. He wanted to unite Hindus and Muslims in the fight for independence. One way to do this was through the Khilafat movement. The Khilafat movement was about protecting the Ottoman Empire's ruler, the Khalifa, after the First World War. Many Muslims were worried that the British would take away the Khalifa's power. Gandhi saw this as a chance to bring Hindus and Muslims together for a common cause. At the Calcutta session of the Congress in 1920, he convinced other leaders that it was time to start a big movement, not just for the Khilafat issue, but also for Swaraj, self-rule for India. And that's the story of the Rowlatt Act and the Jallianwala Bagh massacre. These events showed how the Indian people stood together against injustice and helped pave the way for India's independence. Thank you for joining me today, and remember, the fight for what's right doesn't always require violence. It requires courage and unity. See you in the next video.